call it when I tell you what gender means in my research? I tell you what length of service means in my research.
Observation. Operational definition.
Very good. All right. What do we call it in a descriptive type of study where you're studying just one person or a small group?
A case study?
Okay. What is the governing body that tells you what ethical stuff you should use to do research?
The
APA stands for American Psychological Association. The father of structuralism. No, I skipped you.
But that was his question, though.
It wasn't your question. I guess it was your question. Wundt. You got lucky. Wilhelm Wundt. All right. What did we call it? What is this effect? They did this in a plant, and they painted the wall to see whether it would make people work harder. And it turns out people were working harder not because of the paint, but because they were being watched. What is that called?
You took it.
Hawthorne effect. Now you're up again. Who was the first woman to get a PhD in psychology? No. Washburn. What do you call it when you put a bunch of dots on the chart to see whether it's correlated, negative, positive, or whatever? Scatter plot. Jazeel. What do you call it when you do a test and every time you get the same result? Reliability. Who is the father of Gestalt psychology? Wertheimer. Very good. This man was the father, one of the leaders of behaviorism. He got in trouble for doing the little Albert experiment. John Watson. All right. I didn't cover this perspective really well, so we'll skip it. This perspective deals with the human body and how the human body reacts to whatever. That's thought. Biopsychology, biopsychological. Who was the person that worked with William James as a woman and all the men quit so she didn't get her PhD? Mary Lamb. Mary had a little lamb. Mary Calkins. All right. This is Freud's perspective. Psychodynamic or psychoanalytic. The father of behaviorism.
Actually, I do know why. This is kind of
Candace. All right. The leader of the undeveloped mind, the unconscious mind, was discovered by him. Freud. What do we call this when you said, man, I would have got that right if I didn't know. Hindsight bias. What type of research is the type of research that when Kosha and Wibag are having a problem, I'm doing research to fix it? Applied research. All right. This perspective, Jacob. This perspective, and I can't keep going because I'll never get done with the next one, and I won't. You know how every unit I get beyond, it's going to be hard to keep going back and doing these, so we want to knock this one out so I don't have to bring it back up. This perspective says that we're all good, we can reach our top of potential. Humanist. This is what you use to make hypotheses out of. Theory. Very good. This is the school of thought that was described by William James because he thought studying the structure of the brain wasn't going to cut it. Functionalism. All right. This perspective studies human thought. Cognitive. This is Wilhelm Wundt's way to get you to speak. When you're speaking, this was his strategy. Natalie. Introspection. All right. This perspective said that we all adapted and developed based on our ancestors. Survival of the fittest. Huh? No. Evolutionary. All right. This is a descriptive method in which, oh no, this is Candace. This is a descriptive method in which you get people to answer questions on a piece of paper. Survey method. This is the whole thing that we do, that we get a population for it, and we have a theory for it, and we have hypotheses for it. The whole thing is called a experiment. All right? Now, we have independent variables like they're male or female. We can't change those. And we have dependent variables, whatever the answers are. What are variables called that might be affecting the results, but they're not in our thing? Confounding variables, all right? What type of sampling will give us the best sample? Random, all right? What do we call the whole group of people that might be in our sample? Population, all right? What do we call this if two variables are associated with each other? Correlation. And what is the highest correlation coefficient you can have? And negative one, all right? What do we call this if when we're doing a survey, you're just answering questions that will make you look good? They're not necessarily going to help, but you think that they're the better answers rather than the truthful answers. Participant bias. Participant bias, all right? What are the three main measures? Oh, what's the main measure of variability? What makes things vary? The range is one of the things, how far out it is, but what is the other main measure of variability? Anyone?
Mode?
No. No, those are central tendency measures. Those tell you where the center is. Standard deviation. Standard deviation. And then your three variables of central tendency are your mean, your median, and your mode.
Yeah.
Okay? A couple questions not on here. All right. You're one standard deviation out on a normal curve. What percent of the population is being captured? Huh? 65 is close. 68. Oh, I thought you said 65. I'm sorry. You're two standard deviations out. 95. Three standard deviations. Okay. Now, in the example that we gave, which was the IQ test, what was the standard deviation?
100.
What's the mean, median, and mode in the one we used? 100. Now, what was the standard deviation? That you could go either way. 15. 15. Remember 85 to 115? That's the standard. They'll give it to you. They'll always tell you what it is. You won't have to guess. All right, but you've got to be able to get that. All right, who's up?
Me.
All right. This is a descriptive type of research when you watch the participants and try to make it so they don't know you're watching.
Oh, crap.
Naturalistic observation. You're up again. What do you call it when neither the participant nor the experimenter knows what's going on? All right. What type of statistics go beyond the mean, median, and mode? They're not descriptive anymore. They are inferential. All right. What do you call it when I step on the scale and it gives me the right weight for me?
Right.
It gives me the right weight.
Is it?
The scale is what?
Oh, yeah.
Valid. Validity.
Oh, valid.
It's valid. All right. Janetta, what type of research isn't going to solve any major problems? It's just going to add to the body of knowledge. Basic. Candace, what type of statistics include the mean, the median, the mode, the range, that type of stuff? There's only two. There's inferential, which we don't deal with, and the other type are descriptive, because they describe what you're seeing. They describe. What happens if we're doing a survey and I'm influencing your answers in some way, shape, or form? Experimenter bias. And I might not even be doing it on purpose. I might just be friendly, and so she likes me as a person, and she's trying to give the answers that she thinks I would want. That's experimenter bias. Could even be charged with participant bias if she's doing it in that way. What's the other word for a bell curve? Normal curve. Who was the man who wrote the first textbook in psychology and the theory of functionalism? James. All right. What perspective thinks everything should be observable?
No. Behaviorism.
Behaviorism. What is it that you use to question a theory? And the last one, Reggie. Who was the behaviorist that pushed? Can you get me a rubber band for this? Oh, I got it. Who was the behaviorist that pushed the learning of dogs and their saliva? Pavlov. All right, let's quickly. I am not going to spend much time on 13. What that means is you better make sure you read it.